Which one of you guys wants to do the honors?
Yes.
Oh,
Cool.
all right.
So you just go
Other way.
other way.
What, like?
No.
Oh,
Around.
Yeah.
oh, okay, right. That makes more sense.
So the title is We Expect Too Little. And you say Human Podcast.
Do I have to say that whole thing?
Yeah. Do we expect?
Do we
too little?
expect too little? And then you say the Human Podcast and then, clap.
All right. Do we expect too little? The Human Podcast now. Should I do that again?
Nah, it's all good. Man.
The Human Podcast
On
now.
episode 1 of How to Make.
I think you guys should call it the Human Now Podcast. Like, you know,
Oh, is
just
that
an idea.
Cool.
I've
Should
got
have thought about that.
We've got to get this
before.
redone now.
The Human Podcast now. I love it. Hello and welcome to The Human Now, where we're discussing ideas around what it means to be in this state of time. My name is Akash, and today I'm joined by Roshan, Rahul, and Daniel. How are we all?
Good, mate. Probably
Good.
better than Daniel, who's just been running.
Oh, yeah, we're doing all good. We're doing all good.
Probably
Bit
not.
sore,
He's probably
but-
the best out of all of us.
I
so-
know.
We've just been sitting around.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll just quickly introduce who we have here. So everyone knows Roshan. He's been on about a couple of our episodes now.
Next.
You might remember Rahul from our previous season. We came on and spoke about masculinity.
Mhm.
So I think that's something else we will want to keep going with our episodes. And I'd like to introduce my very good friend here, Daniel Christev. We actually go way back to kindergarten, maybe?
True.
Kindergarten and then high school.
Yeah, there's probably a couple of photos of us from kindy back in the
Yep.
day.
And so the reason why we've got Daniel on today is because he just completed an ultra marathon last week.
Yeah, last week Saturday.
Cool. Do you just want to explain what an ultra marathon is?
So an ultra marathon is just, it's anything longer than a marathon. So a marathon's 42 kilometers. Technically, even if you took like 2 kilometers, you could say you're doing an ultra marathon, but generally they start at 50 and then but I did a 75K.
Cool. Wow.
Wow. I can't even drive that far in my car. Yeah, run it.
So what really interested me about Daniel and his journey was that, so you said it's a 75K marathon. And from what I read, you said that you had aimed to achieve it in 12, but you thought you could do it in 10.
Yeah.
But you actually ended up doing it in 8 hours, 23 minutes.
Yep, that's the one.
So when I read that, because like I've been following people like David Goggins and Jesse Itzler. Do you know of Jesse Itzler? Okay, I'll show you who he is as well. He's another guy who does ultra marathon running as well. So basically, I follow these guys, and I was like, ultra marathon, man, that's hard.
Yeah.
And so to see you do it first, I was like, man, that's really cool that you've been able to do this and that you're into it. But then to also just smash your time from where you had thought you'd be to where you actually ended up, even so that you beat your own like team, your support crew to come and help you. I was like, man, that's such an achievement. You know, and then it also got me thinking. It was like, okay, so you thought you had, you're going to do it in 12 or 10, but you did it in 8 hours, 23 minutes. So then what was going through your head? What was going through your mind when you're like, okay, I'm actually doing better than I thought I was going to do? Do you want to talk about...
Could I add on to that?
Yeah.
And then at what point did you realize you were doing better than what you were you aimed to do?
So before I, like leading into the race, there's a lot of online material about how to run an ultramarathon, how to pace your runs, like what to expect. And, everyone's always like, okay, start start slower than you normally would, than you normally think to. And then once you're running slower, run even slower.
Right.
Because, you know, like, you can't hit the same pace you do in an ultra marathon that you would in like a half or a 10K or, you know, you gotta really like hold in. You gotta take a step back. So, you know, I planned my 75 was split into 3 parts. So like 3 25s. So there was major aid stations at the 25, the 50, and then obviously the finish.
Cool.
And I guess coming into the first 25, I was at about on my pace. I came in about 2.5 hours, and I was like, cool, you know, we're on track. And then for my second split, I planned to run sort of, I think about 4 hours. I thought that was a reasonable expectation for how much I'd slow down. But I got to this point. So the 50K mark was at a place called Kinloch. And I see a sign that says, you're 5K away from Kinloch. And I look at my watch and I'm like, I said I'd be here at 2 at the earliest. It's 1 o'clock now. You know?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I quickly like, you know, I call up my mates and I'm like, hey, like, I'm actually doing really well. Like, I'm gonna be there in like 20 minutes. And, you know, like they just weren't able to make it in time, you know? So I like, so I got to the aid station, like my family was there.
Cool.
And they, you know, and they're just like, you know, at this point I'm like at 50K, I'm starting to like get a bit teary, you know, things are getting hard. And I come to this aid station, I'm like crying a little bit, and Mum's like, Dan, like, you know, just like take it easy, you know, like it's all good, just take your time. And I'm like, Mum, I'm doing too well. I have to keep going. And so I was only there for like 5 minutes tops and immediately took off.
5 minutes?
Oh,
You only took a break for 5 minutes?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Oh my gosh.
How long do normally people stop at like one of those stops?
Well, I mean,
Is it depending on each person how they're feeling, or is it like you only get this much time and then you have to move on?
I mean, you can I say you can stay there as long as you want. There's cutoffs for every mark, but you know, they're pretty generous. Usually, like the last person would make it to the cutoff with like an hour to spare.
Cool.
So, you know, if you wanted, you could stay there as long as you want.
Yep.
But I'd say, like, from what I understand, like 10 to 15 minutes is a reasonable amount of time to spend in an aid station, just to, you know, recoup, like stretch the legs, just, you know,
Get some fluids in.
Yeah.
Cool. Before we get into like mindset in terms of what you do when you're in that situation, do you just want to talk about how you got into marathon running and ultra marathons and what inspired you to get into running?
Yeah. So, like, I was always like kind of into running, I guess, you know, like I'd played football in high school, but, you know, I'd do the occasional like 5K run, maybe like once every like couple of weeks, just, you know, make me feel real good about my fitness when I'm on the footy pitch.
Yeah.
But I think, well, so the first half marathon I did was completely just out of the blue. A mate of mine was like, oh, yo, Dan, I have to pull out of this. Do you want to take my entry? I was like, yeah, sweet. I'll give that a go.
Yeah.
Went
Just
for
turned
like,
up on the day.
yeah. Because she literally told me like 2 days before.
Right.
So I was like, okay, here we go. And then went out, like, I was going to say smashed it, but, you know, did like, I think my first one was like 2:10 or something.
Yep.
And then for the next couple of years, I was like, oh, I quite liked the half marathon. You know, I'll just add it to my yearly calendar, and never really trained super hard for it.
Yep.
And then my lecturer at uni, him and I were working on a project, and we'd both been doing half marathons, and we were both kind of like dancing around the idea of doing a full.
Yep.
And then I think his sister baited him into doing it.
And then he got you into it.
Yeah, and so then he drags me like in with him, and I'm like, geez, like like I guess we're doing this. So like signed up like with 3 months to go, trained like pretty like not great, but it was a start, and I didn't really feel particularly ready on the day, but no one does for their first marathon, and then like it just. Like getting to sort of like the 35K mark in the marathon was just absolutely insane. The mind goes to like all sorts of places, and you really start to just break down as a human, and we're not really meant to do this sort of thing in the day to day. And so that back like 7K was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life, and I had to like push so hard with every single step, but then. When I crossed the line, like, most people would say, they were like, oh, wow, like, how do you feel? How much do you hurt? But I was like, I can't wait to do more.
Really?
That was the first thing I thought of. Wow. And, I was like,
what was it that made you enjoy or want to do more?
Like, I guess for me, I'm all about growth and personal development. And I feel like you grow the most when you're in the most pain. And like I'm not talking like being like stupid and like intentionally trying to hurt yourself.
Yep.
But, like pushing harder than like you thought you could. That's where pain comes, and that's where we learn the most. You know?
And like you're saying, it's not just the physical pain, right? Obviously, it was the mental, that last 7K, all of that was mental. Like your body was obviously going to break down, but I guess your mind forces your body to sort of do what it needs to do to get there, right? And so that pain is not necessarily physical, and it doesn't have to be in a physical form. It could be literally pushing through and working a 20-hour day on a project that you sort of have to finish, or you feel the need to finish, and that growth and that last maybe hour and a half that you're just struggling to get this thing done, that push through that pain to go, I've got to get that finished, I've got to get that done. That's growth too, right? It's not just that physical, it's that pain of being able to break that barrier, I think, is the essential part of the whole thing. And that's what makes you feel good and go, yeah, I did that, I could do that again. Yeah. I'll probably do it better too,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So then you've done this full marathon, and then how did you get into ultra?
How? Like, I think, well, actually,
someone pulled out.
And I didn't train for it, I just turned up.
And that was last week.
So I think one of the really cool differences between half marathons and full marathons is that like you actually like turn to the people around you and you start to like talk a lot more and really help like push each other through, so like I never...
The people you're racing?
Yeah, well, I mean, racing.
Or like running
with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool.
And so for the back, for that back like 10K, was running side by side.
Is this sorry in the ultra that you just did?
Oh, in the marathon.
In the marathon.
Okay, cool.
For the back 10K, was running side by side with this woman, and the whole time she was just like, I'm doing this for my kid. I want to show her that like you can do anything, and that's like that was real important to her. And we both crossed the line, and immediately just like collapsed and like just held each other's hands, and I felt real inspired by this woman, and I added her on Facebook. And then a month later, I saw that she was doing a 100K race. And I was like, what? Like, this woman's crazy.
Yeah.
But then like, to see like where she was and like her and I being in the same place, I was like, that's doable.
If she can do it, I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I can definitely like get into this, and like, let's give it a go.
Oh, cool. And so then how, do you want to talk about like your training and preparation for the ultra and what it took for you to do physically, but then also mentally as well?
So I guess it's hard to it's hard to like pinpoint exactly where like I guess where I started taking it seriously. Because, you know, more than anything, I guess I just decided that I wanted to run more.
Cool.
So I started like going out for like 5 and 10K runs more during the week. I started doing maybe like 20, 25 kilometers a week. And then I think when I decided to suss out an entry, and I was going to do the 50K. And so started working to that, bought like a plan online, didn't stick to it.
That's right, you bought it.
Yeah. And I was, you know, in my mind, I was like, I just need to run more. You know, that was the thing. So then I started like running to work.
Wow.
I'd run to work maybe like 2 or 3 times a week. And then like it just started to feel really good, you know, like I think at the end of the day, we all go through like dark times in the mind. And, you know, I'm a real overthinker. And I just started to, you know, life just started to feel like it wasn't all together.
Right.
But I found the more I ran, the more I became happy with who I was, and the more it just felt like I was doing something and I was achieving something.
Yep.
And it really did a lot for my mental health. And I think by and large that's why a lot of people get into running, you know, like it's just good stimulus for the mind.
Yep. Oh, nice. Rahul, do you want to also talk about so Rahul's background also, he works for Sky Sport, and does a lot of the promo cutting, interviewing sports athletes and sports players. He's very much into the sports community within film and television. So yeah, do you want to talk about what you said about what the athletes talk about when they go through their trainings and what they enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, recently I've been following Israel Adesanya and the City Kickboxing crew that have just been in the MMA doing the UFC, and talking to them, and they say, you know, I suppose a little bit like you, it's almost, you know, the marathon's done and over in a couple of hours, right? Or you know, eight and a half hours for you, but like it's the training, that's the part you got to love, because you do that every day, all day, or 4 times a week, 5 times a week.
Yeah.
That's what you got to love doing, because the event itself is a one-off and it's done. And the enjoyment of that is, oh yeah, great, I've achieved it. But it's more of the community of people that you're running with, or the community of people that you're training with, and how much you enjoy that actual aspect yourself. Yeah. So the fact that you said that you just started to find this clarity and this enjoyment of just the pure running, and this I guess, like you saying, the mental acuity and the mental sort of health that came with that, obviously motivated you to keep running and keep doing it, because it's hard to do something when you're not enjoying it at all, right? You'd never run that ultra marathon if you just hated running.
This is true. This is
Fair
true.
enough. Like, so, and I think that's true with any athlete, with anyone really that's passionate about what they're doing, right? If you're in a great state of mental health when you're doing the thing that you're doing, it's not a chore, it's not a job, it's pure love, and you can do that as long as you want to do it. Like, you could run 8.5 hours, you could be working on an architecture project for 15 hours. It'll never feel like that time, because you're so passionate about what you're doing. Food, water, bloody nothing matters really, because you're so into that moment and into that thing. And I think that's the one thing I've really learned, is like listening to you, Daniel, but also watching these athletes and the way they train and the way they look after their food and their nutrition, and it's all a love of that whole thing.
Yeah.
Is just what drives them to be better. And I think we were talking about before, I'm not sure about you, but the guys I've been talking to, they really say that they've become the people they are, the athletes that they've been, and achieved the things that they have because of the people around them. So like you were saying before, your family was there, that obviously would have been like a little bit of motivation as well, is going,
Yeah.
man, my family's here to back me. They've supported me the whole time. I'm going to push this. I'm going to go all the way. And that's what these guys feel too. You know, they're in the ring or in the octagon or on the field, and they're going, it's not just me. It's not an individual thing. I've got people that are supporting me from the back that have helped me through this. I can do it for them. Like that lady doing it for her kid. That's the motivation is all there, and it's never about just the individual. There's always people around them.
Yeah.
I think that's what people forget when they see individual achievements. Is no, there's still a community behind those people that drive them to do what they do.
True.
Yeah. So I think it's a really important part of why athletes and people do really, really well, is the support crew behind them.
I think like as a side note, it's always like the thing that I was thinking about a lot leading up to it was just that, like, man, I told way too many people that I was like doing this, and I was like, if I like fail at this, I'm gonna feel so humiliated as well.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that's always kind of like a thing just in the back of your head.
It's motivation.
Yeah, because you know, you're like, I want to tell people that I'm doing this. I'm excited, but then
Like,
the fear.
I
kicks
told
in.
so many people.
And also, like, the other thing that was really important that you were saying was the whole, like, you're not doing this for like the finish. Like, you're doing it because you love
Doing it.
like you love doing it. And I think one of the really important things to understand there is that if you put if you stake your happiness or your mindset on completing, you know, if you don't complete it, what does that do to you?
Right.
You know?
Or even the flip side, you complete it, then what?
Yeah.
Right?
Like
if your whole goal, I mean, we've seen like what Warren Buffett talks about it quite a bit in his whole goal was to achieve this amount of money and this amount of wealth. He got there, and then he lost it. He had he had no drive, no direction, nothing.
It's like now what?
He had no idea of what to do, and that's when he went off to India, and he tried to do this pilgrimage where he wanted to try and learn more about himself and what he could do, and that's where he found, okay, the best way for me to do something is now to pay back. And that's why he started all these investment funds and businesses and things like that, where he goes, now I'm using my money to help other people achieve their dreams. And that's a never-ending thing because everyone always wants to achieve something.
Yeah.
And there are billions of people in the world. So he's like, this will never, ever go away. So I've got, like you're saying, I've got something to live for the whole time, to work towards it the whole time, whereas there's no finish. There's no finish because there's an infinite amount of people. There's an infinite amount of running that you can do. There's an infinite amount of work you can do. And I think that's, like you're saying, I think that's the important part, is that the actual thing that you're doing is more important than the end result.
Yeah. 100%.
How did your family and friends take it when you told them you were going to do an ultra? Do you want to explain like how it was when you first told them, and then how it transitioned into them coming in and supporting you in the race?
Like, I think by and large, everyone just thinks I'm crazy.
Yeah, I do.
And you know, I guess in a sense, I've come to just accept that as well.
Yep.
You know, like I very much assume, like, yeah, I guess I am a bit nuts to be doing this. But yeah, I always plan my runs to finish either at like my family's place or like a friend's place. And as soon as I'd rock up there, they'd always have like a feed ready for me. Like, you know,
Food's the motivator. I get that. I understand that.
So basically, you just don't want to cook, and you want someone else to make you the meal. So you're just gonna.
That's smart.
You're doing the mahi to
Yeah.
get the treats.
That's right.
I run to their place and then they're like, Dan's probably hungry. They don't see that I'm using reverse psychology. Yeah.
It's like I get this little bit of pain, but I get that free kai. That's
Yeah. Oh, cool. So then, yeah, how were they when you first told them? And then, how did it change? And what was everyone's thoughts and feelings when they were at your race?
I think it's difficult to say. I feel like the family was always just like, yeah, all right, like, yeah, I guess you can do it. Like, didn't really ever feel like anyone doubted me,
Cool.
which was really cool.
Yep.
But you know, I remember like even on race day, you know, everyone was like, yeah, like go for it, but I'm never gonna run. Yeah.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like I'm not.
Not asking them to run, right?
Yeah. I want to run, so I'm gonna run. I don't care if you want to run or not. And then like throughout the day when they like when the family like saw me at like the
50.
aid stations, and then like when everyone saw me at the finish and just saw like, you know, that final like 200 meters was just an all-out like sprint. Well, I mean, it wasn't an all-out sprint, but in my mind it was. You know, I was probably like, oh,
Just giving
You were chariots of fire in that moment. I just like, dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
and like, yeah, coming down the home stretch, like eyes are starting to water, and then immediately like cross the line, fall down, like collapse, and just start crying my absolute eyes out. And
crying out of, is that happiness, pain, or just
Both.
that you finished, or what was it?
difficult to say, yeah, because
Yeah.
I like
Mixed emotions.
I'd say like pain, yeah, but more just like had completely beaten all my self-doubt and,
Cool.
you know, had
Yeah.
actually completed
amazing.
it, you know?
Yeah.
And then like everyone there is like, oh, you know, like we haven't seen any of the other like 75Kers, like where is everyone? And I'm like 7th. And they're like, what? You know, like that hadn't even occurred to them either, that I was gonna like do that well. And so I think everyone came away from that really inspired. And was just sitting there and being like, wow, like Dan did it, but he didn't just do it, he smashed it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, that is
Yeah, it's
so
amazing.
awesome, man. Like, to be able to hear that you're crying and that you're happy because you've removed all the self-doubt. Like we do doubt ourselves so much.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then when you can, it's almost like when you're just like, you're like, this is me. You know, after you've completed it, like I thought that was who I was, but no, actually now, like, it's almost like an evolution, eh?
Yeah, the growth, right? That's
Growth.
like you're saying, is you're about personal growth, and that's the growth right there, is the fact that you didn't realize, like you knew you could do it, but the fact that you smashed it and could do it was obviously something you never thought about. But the fact that you could do it now, you know, you'd be, you know, the next thing is, well, if I can do that, then what else can I do, you know?
Exactly. And I think, yeah, like the week since then has been just an incredibly exciting week inside my head. You know, I haven't like like it sounds really dumb. Like I haven't done a whole heck of a lot this week. I went to work and you know, played like a game of football. But my mind has been buzzing. Like I'm just
how?
Like I just sit here and I'm like I guess one of my other goals was I wanted to run a 3-hour marathon. Because there's a marathon called the Boston Marathon. You've probably heard of it. So in order to qualify for Boston, you need to run sub 3 hours. And like my marathon last year, I did it in like 4:26, which you know, standard time. And I sat there and went, well, I have to shave an hour and a half off of that effort. That seems pretty nuts. But now I'm sitting here and I'm like, if I plan out like my year and I decide what I want to do and I make sure I get my like speed runs in and my long runs in, that's actually insanely achievable. You know? And like today, like finishing the half marathon, I was finishing at like the 2:50 mark for the marathoners. So I was just sitting there and being like, wow, like this is going to be me next year. I'm going to be finishing with one of these guys.
Cool. For those who don't know, and I don't know if we said at the beginning, but Daniel just completed a half marathon this morning, and he's come in here and he's speaking about his
Doing more.
experience.
Doing more? Crazy, man.
If he could, he'd
Like-
probably be running during this podcast.
Yeah. Like, the interesting thing, though, you said, Daniel, was the fact, like, you're like, everyone thinks you're crazy for running, right? But I think, like, what triggered me is because I was thinking the same thing, too. I'm like, you're crazy for running. I was telling these guys, I can't do that, right? Like, I could run a hockey game, no problem. You know, I could run 40 minutes in a hockey game, an hour in a hockey game is fine. I could work out at the gym for an hour, no problem at all. But you tell me to run for an hour, there's no way I'm doing it. But the fact that you say you're crazy for doing that, I get the same reaction when I work all day in sports. I come home and I watch sports again. And my family goes, you are crazy. How can you work all day watching sports, come home and want to watch sports again? I'm like, but it's different. I'm working and then I'm loving it. But it's just passion.
Yeah.
That's literally what it comes to. The love of it. You never get sick of it. There is no time when you're sick of doing that thing. At this point anyway, there's no time of it. And other people can't understand that because they may not have that same love of that thing.
Yeah.
But I'm sure everyone has a love of something that they could be doing 24/7 and they won't get tired. You know?
100%. You just need to find what it is.
That's right.
So just going back to when you're in that situation where you realize you're actually doing better than you thought you'd be doing. So that finishing at that 12-hour or 10-hour, what was that based off? Was that just based off like a gut feeling? You're like, okay, maybe I will finish around this time?
Like, no, I actually did a lot of research into.
Okay. So you
Right.
weren't, it wasn't like a safety kind of thing where you're like, okay, I'll finish around 12's like an okay thing. Or 12 was actually, no, this is 100% my
Calculated.
Ability.
target. Yeah,
Yeah.
based on my training and everything I've been doing, everything I've researched, 10's like my ideal,
Yeah.
and 12 is actually where I think I'm going to finish.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, this is my first one. People say I'll finish around 12.
So there's a rule of thumb when it comes to ultra running, and I think it's specific to like each person, but I found what I sort of settled on was I could run 10K in an hour, and then also add an hour for every 1,000 meters of elevation. So we had 75K, so that's 7.5 hours, and then 2,500 meters of elevation, another 2.5 hours. That's 10 hours. And so, for me, I said like, okay, 10 hours, like I could, like 10 hours running time. That's not factoring in like time stopping at aid stations, time stopping for like breaks, that was where the number came from. And so, yeah, and I was like, in my mind, if everything went absolutely perfectly, I might be able to make 10 hours.
Cool.
Right.
And then, but 12 seemed pretty
Reasonable.
achievable.
Reasonable.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so it was actually a realistic, calculated
yeah.
goal.
Mm.
Okay, cool.
I see.
Man, and you did it in 8 hours. Almost
Incredible,
8 hours, 23 minutes.
That's unbelievable. So you don't know till you know.
Yeah, yeah. And like, I think the other funny thing was as soon as I got to like the end, I was like, why did I do the 100K?
Oh man, it's insane.
So like the other component of the podcast is that we talk about these things, but then we also want to implement in action what we learn here. So we've kind of learned talked about like the preparation and then doing better than what we plan to do. So I think the key learning from me is like we often expect too little of ourselves. I know Rahul was talking about tall poppy before. This is just outside of the podcast. Why do you think we sometimes just undermine our abilities or chuck in that safety when really we should be like, no, actually, what if I can do this? What if I actually can achieve this in this amount of time? Is it should we actually be setting slightly unrealistic
Goals.
I think
or a little bit achievable, or something that's a little bit more achievable outside of our scope?
I think so. Like you don't want to set an insanely like hard goal,
Because that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you need, like goals need to be measurable and achievable, you know? And I think the more you, if you start setting like small goals and you start achieving those, things become easier. Then you sit there and go, oh, I did that. I can do more.
Yep.
Then I achieved that one. I can do more. And, it's all about progression. But I think, when it comes to, like, what were you saying exactly? Like, why do we?
Yeah, why do we? Because I know sometimes what we do is we like that self-doubt, and therefore we undermine our abilities and set our expectations a little lower than what we actually think rather than what we actually think our actual ability to do something is.
Yep.
I think.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's just
Like, how do we overcome that?
like it's just easy to like sit in that place. It's easy to sit here and
It's comfortable, right?
yeah, and to not really want to push. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely like other aspects in my life where I know I could be pushing harder, and I'm working towards that now, especially because I have seen
Right.
what belief can do.
Mm.
And I think it's just important to give yourself those small victories,
Right.
so that like hitting those small goals is what helps it compound and helps you achieve
The big ones.
the big ones. Yeah.
I think in that as well is that there's this with this world that we live in, that's everything's instantaneous, right? Like you see people become instant stars, you see people become instant Instagram, whatever you call them, influencers or whatever, right? It looks instant to us. Everything looks instant to us, right? Because we're only seeing the end product.
Yeah.
We never actually get to see the steps that they get to that. So say someone was following Daniel and all they saw was he achieved 8.5 hours instead of the 12. What an accomplishment. They go, damn, that guy's awesome. It's natural ability. He's just a natural athlete. He can run it. Not knowing he started off doing a half marathon, struggling to get the last bit done, did the second, like doing the steps and the preparation, and nobody sees that stuff.
Yep.
So what we want is instant gratification, which
Right.
you can never ever get that if you want a big goal, like you're saying. So what you're saying is perfect, Daniel. Achieve the small things to get to the big thing. Do the small tips. Once you do that first thing, you feel, oh, I've done that. Okay, I can do the next thing. Let me do the next thing. Let me do the next thing. And that's how eventually you'll get to that end goal, and you'll surpass what you thought you can do because of the fact that you've done the steps towards it correctly, right? Just like you planned and prepared for the ultramarathon. Like, if he had done none of that, he would never have got the 8.5, right? It would have been impossible. But he'd prepared for doing that in marathon, and because of his pure mental ability, he was able to do it in a lesser time. Even you didn't know you were doing it while you were doing it, right?
Yeah.
It was only until that point you said, oh man, I'm like an hour, like what is going on here? But you don't know because you're just doing the steps that you've planned. And when you got to that point, now that's where you could have gone, you could have switched and you're gone, I'm just going to wait for everyone and do it in my 12 hours, right? Or the other ability, other option was, no, I'm going to nail this as fast as I can because I think I can do it. Now, that's where that fork in the road comes. What do? The comfortable one is waiting for your mates, finishing it with them. The other one is, well, I'm going to push myself and see how far I can go.
Yeah.
Those are your options. And like you say, most people take the comfortable path because it's easy.
Yeah.
The hard one, well, it's hard. No one really wants to be
Gotta take
uncomfortable and do.
You literally have to take it yourself.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
you're the only one that can make that decision. And yeah, it's like, yeah, props to you, man. That's some good shit. I don't know how you did that. That is incredible. And inspirational. I think the fact that, Akash and Roshan are doing this podcast and people can listen to that, even if it's 2 or 3 people that have listened to this and seen the way you've done it and gone, well, I'm in that fork in the road where something's going to be hard. Do I take the hard path or do I take the easy path? They've seen you've taken the hard path and achieved it.
Not just
Maybe-
achieve it, but achieve it and done.
And demolished it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then
You know what I mean?
maybe
I think that's
yeah.
the actual message
Yeah.
that I wanted to get communicated today was that you can set a goal and a target. You can prepare and plan, but then you can also just achieve beyond
What you're planning, yeah.
you have even just set out to achieve. You know, you actually have the ability to do it. And then that's something else I was just going to tag off what you were saying in terms of doing the preparation and the planning and the training.
Yeah.
Is to actually recognize that you've done the preparation planning and the training.
Yeah.
So you are a result of what you've done. Therefore, you are going to achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
You know, it's an imbalanced equation if it doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Like
it has to add up.
People always just think it's just natural ability or natural talent, and then there's this thing that's just thrown around. Natural talent still has to be like, what do you call, focused and molded. It's not, you know, like you can be 7 foot, doesn't mean you're going to be a great basketballer. You've still got to do the actual like training and learning and skills that you need. Like Steven Adams wasn't a great basketballer because he was 7 foot. He worked his butt off to be a good basketball player. He learned. He went to the States. Everyone thought he was going to be terrible because he hadn't played enough basketball, but he focused on doing what he needed to do. And look at him now; he's a great basketballer.
True.
You know, so you look at that, and he's come back, and now he's inspiring more kids to do it. So it's just, that's the thing. Like, you have to have a talent. Yes, everyone has some sort of talent, but you've got to nurture it. You've got to make it grow like you've done. You've got to build those steps to the half, to the full, to the ultra, now to the 100 or whatever 3-day one. If you're gonna, I don't know where you go with this, but like that's what I'm saying. People just want this instant gratification. And then coming back to that tall poppy thing, is we think that if you're good at, like, people say that if you're good at something, don't tell people. You know, don't like, show them. Do it. Show them. Like, you believe it. You say you're good at something, but then do it. Like you were saying, I've told 100 people that I'm doing the marathon. Now you can't back out, can you? You know, and that's great because you're holding yourself accountable, right? And that's, I think that is the key, is that if you don't hold yourself accountable, you say you want to become a singer, right? You're like, oh, I want to be world famous singer, and you just expect it to happen. It's not. You've got to do those things. Be accountable. Tell 100 people you're going to be a world-class singer. Now work for it.
And then celebrate it as well.
Yeah.
100%.
Which is why I really appreciate you for posting up your post and saying that this is what I set out to do and this is what I achieved. Like 100%, you should be so
100
proud of yourself.
Agreed.
Because we are so proud of you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
We
Like, that was even that was an interesting thing as well, because I was like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to post that, because I was, you know, like, tall poppy syndrome is such a thing. Like, we don't like to say that we've done something good, you know. And I was like, oh, do I do it? Should I go for it? I posted it, and like, everyone has loved it.
Yeah,
everyone is like, I've heard so much like positive stuff from everyone, and people coming up to me and being like, Dan, I'm so inspired now. And like, that makes me feel good now, because I'm like, I want to keep inspiring people, you know?
Exactly.
You want to keep going.
Yeah, 100. That's fantastic.
Yep.
That is exactly what we should be celebrating, is people like that are, and it's not like you did that because you want people to love you. It's not the fact. You're just proud of your achievement. You've done something that you feel is good, and you're proud of putting up there, and people are inspired by them. People get up for that, and you're inspired by a lady that just ran for a kid. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. Everyone has their own inspirations. Everyone has their own motivations. But if you don't put it out there for people to see and people to learn, then how do they get better? How do they
100%.
break the mold, right? How do they break that tall poppy syndrome that we're talking about? Going back to Israel Adesanya was saying this to me as well, and it'll come into something later. I'm working on a project, but he says we need to kill this tall poppy syndrome thing that's happening here. You know, people hate me because I'm out there and I'm arrogant. I said I'm going to knock this guy out, and I dance and I'm, you know, I am arrogant in a sense, but I'm also super confident in what I can do. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is when you say you're going to do something and not do it, and you just, it's all fluff and clouds and vapor. Like, there's nothing there. There's nothing of substance. Yeah. So as long as you're doing something of substance, like you're allowed to put it there because you've put hard work into it, and people will be inspired by that, and hopefully inspire change.
Roshan, do you have anything to add? Or anything you want to say?
How? That's quite, I have no words for what you have done. Like, mad respect for you, for sure.
I don't know how you get through that pain, eh?
Yeah.
I like run for 20 minutes, I'm in pain, I'm like, yeah, I'll do another 10, I'm done. But the ability for you to just, oh man, that's just super, super inspiring.
Cheers. I think like one of the other important things to say as well is like, this isn't the goal for me. Like, I haven't achieved.
Exactly. It's
like,
just another.
Just
stepping
another
stone.
little one. Yeah, another little
like,
step.
Like, I was having this conversation with my mates like a couple of months ago. Like, there was this one moment which I think kind of like really set the ball rolling for me, and it was a strange one. I went out for a run like one Saturday night, and I went out, like, it was middle of winter. I went out running with like my like short shorts and my like singlet, and that was it. I went out for like a 2-hour run.
In the middle of winter.
It started like raining as well at one point.
What?
And eventually I was going to like a party at my mate's place.
I'll just run there.
In your
fine.
shorts and singlet, as you do. Yeah.
And so they see me, like they see me having just gone for a run. And they're like, "What the hell are you
doing?
up to?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was, I just went for a run, whatever. But like, come inside and like I started to feel really cold, and I was like, oh, like this doesn't quite feel right.
Yeah.
And like, like grabbed a couple of like layers from our mates, like okay, we'll take care of that. But I was still feeling really cold.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this isn't right. Like an hour later, body was still really cold. And like mine's ticking. I was like, what's going on right now? So I'm like sitting here like shivering like in the like at this party, and everyone's being like, hey guys, like, who's that weird dude in the corner wearing like 3 jackets?
Yeah, he's
and
got
like,
withdrawals or something.
And so I was like, I need to go. So I just like hopped in an Uber, went straight back to my flat, and like in that Uber ride, I started to feel like the body like shutting down.
What?
And like I was like going into like panic mode, and was just like, geez,
Yeah.
like I'm 100% not all good at the moment. You
Yeah.
know, like have you ever gotten to that moment of like really like heavy breathing?
Yeah.
Like I was scared. Rock back up to the flat, and like the boys were all, oh cool, you're back. And I'm like, guys, I think I've got hypothermia. And we're all like, we're just, they're like, well, what do we do? And I'm like,
I don't know.
like, I've done a bit of like hiking and stuff. So I was like, oh, I know how to deal with hypothermia. So it was just like, okay, let's get all the layers. Let's get all our like pajamas and onesies, like just layer up. And then like sat in the corner of my mate's like bedroom. Like the 4 of us were in there, closed the door, turned on the heat up to max. And for the next like 3 hours, just like tried to like bring the body temperature like back up. And they're sitting there like sweating, and I'm just like, nah, guys, like, this is how it has to be. I'm not all good. And then at a certain point, like the mind ticks over, and it's like, oh, you don't want to get too hot though, because that's also a problem.
Yeah.
And it became this really weird like balancing act of like having to, like in my like low functioning hypothermic state, having to figure out like what I needed to be able to like resuscitate myself. It was absolutely bizarre, eh? But
Self-healing.
like at a certain point, I like finally started to feel like normal again.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, cool. Like let's talk about what the hell just happened.
Yeah.
And it like, there's something about like just the mind in that moment was so driven, and I just sat there and I was like I want to smash my goal now. I think that was the moment where I realized I was going to do the ultra marathon. That was in like June or July or something, and I was like, yeah, I can do this. And like we started talking about, well, like what do you need to do, like what does this mean for your life right now? And I started being like, well, I need to cut out like alcohol. I need to like stop doing all this stuff. I need to take my running really seriously. I need to be making sure I'm getting all my training runs in. And, it started to seem a bit scary because all of a sudden I was starting to load, like I was starting
the realities.
Yeah, I started to put everything onto it and started to see the big picture. And like we got stuck in this like circle of being like, do you want to commit to this?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I'm scared. And they're like, well, how do we move on from this point? And we're at like 3 a.m. or something now, like having this full on super intense yarn. And I'm like, honestly, like, I just need to go for a run.
And they're like, you've just come and settled your hypothermic
And they're like,
state.
no, you are absolutely not. You're not doing this. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I was just like, nah, I got to do it. And so they're like, okay, well, we're clearly not going to stop you. Let's make this as safe as possible. So I like went out with like a couple of layers, had like my bag, put my like GPS like location out to them as well, so they could see where I was the whole time. Went out for like 5 or 6K, and came back, and and I was just like, it was interesting because at that point I was like, I still don't know, but at least the mind is settled.
Yeah.
Like it really just like relaxed everything that had happened that night.
I'd start just in there. That
I don't know.
what do you say? What?
I got tired after his first run.
I'm still in hypothermia. And this fool goes and runs again. Oh my god!
Man, that's
like your meditative state.
That's
that
exactly
running.
what I was just gonna say. I was like, man, maybe you just need to run to meditate on everything that just happened. You need to process, and your way of dealing with that maybe would have
gone
been
another run.
to just gone for another run.
Yeah. And running is 100% meditative for me. Like I do so much like personal and self-reflection in that time. Like it's like a lot of people are like, Dan, like you don't really do like downtime or anything. I'm like, no, like
that's your
Running
downtime.
is your downtime.
Yeah,
I love that, man. I love that. Oh,
that's so good.
what a story, man.
Oh, no. That's your tease right there. He just ended on, and then I wanted to go on another run. Welcome to the Human Now podcast. Just
The
outstanding.
Human Podcast Now.
Podcast now. It's okay. He's not running. That's why he can't say his words properly. Like, he's not in his meditative state.
Yeah, we should have done this on like a treadmill or something.
I told you.
Yeah, Rosh and I would have been like,
Yeah. I'll just like, yeah, you run.
Rosh is like, I need to be on the camera. I'll just sit out this podcast.
Oh, cool, man.
That was awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming along
Yeah.
and just sharing your story. It's so inspirational to us, and I'm sure everyone who's watching or is listening, I hope you're feeling the same. Because after just hearing, I thought I heard it all.
Yeah.
After hearing the story about how you beat your time and your goal, but now to just hearing how you've been in the state of hypothermia, being able to control or understand what your body needs, but then to also be like, no, I actually need to go for a run now. Man, that is, I'm definitely gonna be thinking on that and just trying to understand what
The
that
mindset.
means to me, because that's inspirational, and that means so much to me. So thank you so much for coming along and just sharing your experience. Also, thank you so much for putting your experience and your journey out to people in your community and your world, because in doing that, you've enabled us to firstly have this conversation, but then also you've inspired us to think about what we can do in our own lives and where we can break past that point of self-doubt and really just not being afraid to be who we are and achieve what we want. You know, finding that true self. So yeah, thank you so much, man.
Oh, thanks for the opportunity. Like, I was really excited just to be able to tell like the story of the last year, you know? It's been great.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Oh man, I'm definitely gonna be following your journey. And for sure, anytime you go through something like this, or anytime you want to come back and speak as well about your journey, I'm sure people would love to hear what you're up to and where you're going. It is so interesting, just the connection between the mind and that self and overcoming that. Oh, that means, that's big.
Cool. Well, thanks, boys. It's been cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
been a good session.
It has been, yeah.
And I just want to say, thanks to Rahul and Roshan as well for being here too. Roshan, man, it's the energy and the calmness of your presence.
Just your presence.
It's your presence.
That's all we need.
I just got no words. Like after hearing that, like all I was thinking is like,
He's
this
still
is a Netflix documentary. His life story. That's exactly what it is.
New Nash Street project.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just for Rahul for being here as well. I know that this is something you would have been interested in as well, being coming from a sports background and being around these people as well. I'm sure you can really relate to what Daniel's been through. So I just want to thank you as well for being here as well.
Oh, no worries, I love it. Anytime.
Cool. Thanks so much, guys, for coming along and giving us your time on the podcast. I'd also like to thank everyone who's tuned in, who's listening. If you're watching as well, thank you so much for your time. I hope you've benefited. I hope you've taken something, even just the smallest bit of information, or just the power of the mind and not being afraid to be about what you want to be about. I think that's so huge, and that we need to start pushing and allowing people in our community to really celebrate themselves. I think that's so important. So if you do know someone in your own circle who you think could benefit from this, please do share this podcast to them. Even if you've got something that you want to be about, or that if you're a bit uncomfortable about taking the step, please do take the step or the chance or the opportunity, because man, you don't even know what you could achieve. You know, it's so huge. So yeah, please do like, share, comment, subscribe, join us on the journey. Daniel, where can people find you?
I guess Instagram's the one I use the most. #cheekybulge.
There you go. Yeah.
As weird as it is, but you know.
Also, wear more than a singlet and short shorts if you're going to go running in winter, is what I've learned.
Yeah. Wear some thermals. They help a lot.
Cool. Thank you so much. And if you do have any questions or queries, anything we can work on, please do email us at info@thehumannow.co.nz. And until next time, be human, be now.